Hey you guys, I'm Joe Coy, and this is my first joke. My first time ever on stage was in this competition called Star Mania, which was a bootleg version of Star Search. They hosted these talent shows at local bars all over Las Vegas. My sister was in she was like in the singing part of the competition. There was a comedian that went up before my sister, and my sister looked at me and she was like, you could kill this guy. And then I was like, in my head, I'm gonna join. I was only 18, 19, so I had to like grow my baby hair, mustache, and I took my mom's eyeliner and made it really dark so I can get into the bar. I was so scared to walk up to the bar. My heart was pounding. The security guard let me in. I was like, oh shit. I was sitting right next to a Lionel Richie impersonator. That's the guy I was going up against. He went up and destroyed. I think he sang a Commodore song or something like that. I can't remember what he sang, but he crushed it. And then they bring me up. And I remember looking at the 2 pages that I wrote, and I cut the last page in half because I figured that last joke in the middle of that page was good enough to like end on. And I felt like if I went anywhere past it, I was gonna go over my time. None of that fucking happened. The first joke I said, tanked. It was just sex jokes. The joke that I was trying to do is I got a small dick, you can't fit inside a condom. Like that's the joke I came up with. Like it's just baggy. It's just falling apart. Mouth, cotton. My tongue sticking to the roof of my mouth. I forgot everything that I wrote. I go, you ever have your mouth so dry, your tongue sticks to the roof of your mouth? And I was trying to find a joke. And this drunk lady at the bar, just sitting by herself, she goes, why don't you put a condom on it? She did a fucking callback to a shit joke, and the crowd went ape shit. Started clapping. She got an applause break on my fucking shitty joke. And then I just got off the stage. And I sat right next to this Lionel Richie impersonator, and I swear to God, this is what he said to me. He goes, you had great stage presence. He goes, I know you were bad out there, but you had good stage presence. And if he didn't say that, I swear to God, I wouldn't be doing comedy today. So I hope if this guy's watching, thank you for telling me to keep doing it, man. I owe you dinner and a fucking Commodore's album. You wanna hear the funniest part of that whole thing? Is when I came home and I opened up the door, cause it's like 10:30 on a Friday. My mom goes, were you on a date? I go, no. Why are you so dressed up? I go, no reason. And I ran to my fucking room like a bitch. Hey, that was my first joke. If you wanna see more of those, go to my Instagram, JOKOI.
Hey, this is Russell Peters, and this was my first joke ever. My first time on stage doing stand-up was in 1989, and that's when I started this illustrious career. I remember thinking that I had this figured out, and I had no clue, and my opening joke was just so bad. It wasn't even like a joke, it was just like, what? It was like, hey, good evening. Don't you hate when you ask somebody how you doing and then they don't reply? That was literally my opening joke. And in my head I went, what the fuck are you doing? Get off the stage, you don't belong here. And then when I was 15, I started boxing. And then when I was fighting guys in the ring, I used to use comedy to distract them. So like, I would go to hit you, like I would step in and hug you, and then I would whisper in your ear, you smell so good. And then the guy would be like, hey, and he'd push me off, and then pop, and I'd get one off. Well, the only time I was able to get one off on these guys. You can catch my latest stand-up special, The Deported World Tour, on Amazon Prime Video. And watch Lights Out with David Spade.
Who can forget the first joke they ever wrote?
I can. My first joke I remember writing was about my name. My full name is Jeff Ross Lifschultz.
Oh.
So I used to say, Lifschultz is an old Hebrew word. It means, hey, you ought to change that. My first joke.
That one still holds up. One of my favorites. I think the first joke I ever wrote was I went to the Gap, not to shop, I just wanted to dance because they were playing music. That was, I think, the first. I was like, wow, this is, I got it, nailed it. Writing a joke to me is still like what it's about. And when you come up with something new, you're like, wow, it's just, there's no better feeling.
And as Dave says, a joke isn't a joke until somebody laughs at it.
That's true. Before that, it's a t-shirt. Boom. You want to see some fast and loose jokes? Come see us live. There you go.
Bumping mics on tour.
Hi, I'm Zainab Johnson, and this was my first joke. The first time my mom ever saw me do stand-up, I was at a strip club in Detroit on the 6th mile, which I found out that night is the worst mile in Detroit. I thought it was the 8th. And before I got on stage, my mom looked me in my eyes and she said, Zainab, I know you're not gonna be funny, so I'm gonna get a glass of wine, okay? And I was like, well, if my mom doesn't believe me, I don't give a shit about the crowd. I definitely got on stage and said, my mother just said she knows I'm not gonna be funny. And she's drinking a glass of wine, and she's Muslim. So I've turned this religious woman into a wino. And then I said, I'm sure I probably said something about my mom having like 13 kids. And the crowd was like, oh, and I was like, that's the sound her vagina makes. At the end of it, the person who like told me to come do the spot, he said he'd give me $60, right? And I, as an early comic, assumed that when somebody says they're gonna pay you, that they're gonna pay you. So when I got off stage, my mom was like, did you get your money? And I was like, no, he didn't give it to me, so I'm not gonna ask. And my mother said, this ain't no charity. Go get your money. And I went right to the promoter and was like, my mother said, and then I got the $60. I went back to my mom. I was like, I got the $60. And she was like, now pay for my wine. Even when I did like my first TV set, one of my younger brothers was with me at the taping, and after the taping, he was like, I was so scared. And I was like, why? And he was like, I don't remember you being funny. I think I only do this to prove my family wrong. This was my first joke. And if you guys want to see more of me, Instagram and Twitter, it's Zainab Johnson, Z-A-I-N-A-B Johnson. I assume you know how to spell Johnson.
Hi, I'm Andrew Santino, and this is my first joke. My first joke was about a sign off the freeway, and a man was holding it, and it said, "Make love, not war." And I said, that's ironic because every time I make love, it's just like war. Everyone's sad and upset, and money is usually owed. So bad. So bad. I did the halftime show of a burlesque show on the Queen Mary in Long Beach. You can't imagine misery when like 6 hot girls have to take a change break and they bring out this like repulsive redheaded boy to like give the crowd a laugh break. And a gang member was in the audience, I'll never forget. And our security was just a guy named Mark who like worked on the boat, but just would wear a polo that said security. And the gang member goes, "What is this, last comic standing?" And then I said, no, they wouldn't even let me on that show. And the crowd laughed, and then he threw his drink at me. Instead of stopping, I kind of went right into the light. I was like, look, man, I'm just doing my best, just like you and the other fellas. We're all out here scrapping away at life, trying to really make it. Except I didn't go to prison. And they didn't think that was funny either. He kind of tried to charge the stage a little bit, and the security guy came, our cook, and he broke it up. I literally didn't do my second act that night because I was afraid of him murdering me. That's my lesson. Be a man and leave. If you want to see me do actual material from this point in my life, way, way better than that, go to andrewsantino.com and see all my tour dates. Also, watch Lights Out with David Spade almost every single night on Comedy Central.
Hey, this is Eric Griffin, and this is my first joke. I remember the first joke I ever wrote, it was because I have a big nose. I remember the joke too, I'd be like, you know when you have a big nose, you can only take pictures one way, just like this. And people say, turn to the side. The first time I knew I was funny was like, as a kid, I would act out things, like somebody would say something and I would just act it out and then people would be laughing at me. And I realized as a kid, I enjoyed that response. I enjoyed like what it did to people. But the first time that I really realized how powerful it was is, like I talk about having a big nose, but I used to be very insecure about it. Like super duper insecure, because this would happen at every school. Oh, he's got a big nose, and then it would just become a thing. And everybody's like, big nose guy, right? So when I started to laugh at myself and talk about like, if somebody said you have a big nose, and I'm like, yeah, and I can smell how funky you are, like that kind of thing. And then it had no power over me, and that's when I realized the plethora of things that I could talk about and delve into that really made me feel really funny. I took a break because I went out and tried to do open mics. I didn't understand how this worked. I didn't know what was going on, and I couldn't take it, and I just quit. And I always tell people that people don't fail, they quit. And I always regret that. So I quit for 8-9 years. And then when I came back is when I was like, okay, I got it. I was older, I felt like I was more mature, but I do regret that. People say don't have regrets, but no, you can have regrets as long as you learn from them. And so that's my message, is that, take chances, follow your dreams, because you never know. And I wish I would have, but I'm doing it now. But, I wish I didn't stop. This was my first joke. And make sure to check me out on my podcast, Riffin' with Griffin. And make sure you watch Lights Out with David Spade on Comedy Central.
Hey, we're the Sklar Brothers, and this is our first joke. Let me think. I think one of our first bits that I remember doing on stage was about the Guinness Book of World Records, a photo of the world's tallest man, Robert Wadlow, 8 foot 11 inches tall, photographed with his two brothers who were normal height, like David 5'9" and Mark 5'7", and then Guinness put this in the caption, Robert is the one wearing glasses. We're like, really? His head isn't through the fucking chandelier. But he's the one wearing glasses. Okay. All right, we know. That's the moment when you realize that Guinness is a beer.
Yeah. Here's a funny moment that happened to me, and then I realized, okay, we're funny. We can do it. So I had a teacher in, I want to say 8th grade, who was just awful. Home economics teacher, Mrs. Frank. On Halloween, she wore a gorilla's mask. And that was her costume. And she wore it for 2/3 of the class. And after 2/3 of the class, it was just too hot for her to teach in this mask. So the second she pulled her mask off, I screamed. And she pulled it off.
And you got laughs.
I got laughs. And then I got sent to the principal's office. And I told our dad what happened. And he laughed. And he's like, you're in trouble, but
not much trouble.
Was a good one.
That was the guy. Our dad was the kind of guy who
we would go into a restaurant and our dad would see someone who he knew who didn't see us there.
And didn't see him.
And he would send us over to the table and just have us walk up to
interrupt someone's dinner, look at a guy and be like, Daddy!
So like that comedy was always around us. It was a bit of a currency in our family. First joke we ever wrote was a joke about our parents.
Yes.
Best names in the history of parental names. We'll put them up there against anybody's names. And Dick and Annette Sklar, which of course brings to the surface our favorite joke. How do you catch a dick?
With a net.
It's a good joke. I mean, it's just good, tight writing.
Funnier to say when you're like in your 30s or 40s than when you're like 9.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Preacher Lawson, and this is my first joke. My first time on stage, I was 17 years old. It was at the University of Memphis, and I signed up at open mic, and my mom brought me there. And I was so scared to go on stage when they called my name, I didn't go up. It was like, Preacher Lawson, and I was walking to the stage, but I was so scared it took me so long. They was like, Preacher Lawson, I guess he's not here. And they was about to call the next person, and then my mom was like, no, he right here. He right here. Go on stage. You ain't gonna waste my gas money, boy. Get on stage. And then after she yelled at me in front of everybody, I had to go on stage. First joke I did was, I'm turning 18 in 2 weeks, and then they cheered. And I was like, don't cheer, that means my mom can legally kick me out. It wasn't good. I was bombing, and then I screamed like a girl, and I got a big laugh. And then after I got off stage, I thought I did well, and then I was like, hey, I did great, didn't I, Mom? She was like, you should keep writing. And I was like, all right. This was my first joke. Make sure you follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, YouTube, Tinder, Black People Meet, all that.
Hi, I'm Ariel Vandenberg, and this is my first joke. I have always loved comedy my entire life, so the first time I feel like I really got my grandparents. I was super young, and it's so funny that I was like even thinking about this then because I used to watch a lot of Full House. I always would recognize that the comedy came from the timing of things. Even at a young age, like I remember being like, that was funny because it was awkward. And they were doing construction downstairs and I was trying to take my, little kid nap, and they were just hammering away down there. I was just trying to sleep and I couldn't. And this guy comes upstairs and he knocks on the door, and I open the door and I just yelled at my grandma. I stared at him for a little bit and I go, he's got a hammer. And like my grandma was like, what was that timing? I loved that my grandma recognized that I had comedic timing when I was 2 years old. That was probably the first time I realized maybe I was a funny person. I don't know. One of the first Vines that I really thought, oh, I should keep doing this was the relatable stuff. Being really relatable on Vine was cool, because people were like, oh my God, you're saying what we're all thinking. So I did this Vine where I run into a hot guy at the store and I'm buying a plunger, toilet paper, and tampons. Funny story, this guy who I was using in my video, he's now my fiance, and we weren't dating at the time. He's like, what you got there? And I go, poop stuff. And that was kind of the whole video, and it got so many views, and I was like, maybe I'm a Viner now. It was like so stupid. And then we did like spin-offs of that 6-second video. Like those were the things that people loved me for. That's what I will be remembered for, I guess. Am I okay?
Hi, I'm Josh Wolf, and this is my first joke. I had seen some stand-up on TV, and I was like, I really want to try that. And so I went, and so I asked the guy, I said, what should I talk about? And he said, talk about what you know. Now, this was Western Mass in the, I'm not going to tell you when, but I'll tell you what I was wearing. I was wearing acid wash jeans, and they were tucked into my big old Timberlands. I had a silver chain, but not like a rope chain, like a thick, like Pharaoh. You know what I'm talking about? It gets worse, everybody. I had a white mesh shirt on, but not like one of the mesh shirts with big holes, but like tight white, you know, like a football, tight white, so it looked sharp. Anyways, I'm walking up to the stage. My parents are in the front row, and so my mom has one of those cameras, you know, one of those veet, veet, click, and I can hear it the whole way up. Zeet, zeet, click, zeet, zeet, click. And I get on stage and I go, hey everybody, my name's Josh. I'm 15 years old. I'm really excited to be here because this is the first fucking time I'll be able to fucking swear in front of my cocksucking mom. And killed. But a very silent car ride on the way home. And when we pulled into the house, my dad was like, you gotta get there yourself next time. And I was like, yeah, got it. This was my first joke. If you wanna see all of my other jokes, guys, go to my YouTube channel. And I got a new special dropping at the end of March on that same channel. Also, make sure you check out Lights Out with David Spade, everybody. Later.